Hello, Natalie Quinn here, and I am discussing my coaching scenario for the Southie accents in Lindsay Abea's Good People. And this is a really wonderful play. It has 6 characters in it, and I feel like all of them, except for perhaps Kate, would utilize a really great Southie accent. And the Southie accent is really fun, and it's really tricky because it has diphthongs and triphthongs, and they are really fun and challenging to use well and consistently. But it is about these characters who sort of live paycheck to paycheck in a cycle of poverty, and their choices and luck and things like that determine their fate. And Margie, the main character, is trying to find a job at the very beginning. She's just lost her job, and she goes to meet with Mike, and Mike may not have a very thick Southie accent either, because he's in a more academic career now, and he kind of feels guilty about this. He kind of feels guilty about not having the Southie dialect and sort of denying his roots. So he doesn't have quite as thick an accent as she does. And then Kate may not have an accent at all from the Southie Boston area, because her parents are well-educated African-American folks who may not have raised her to speak that way. And I can explain this a little better. I'm from the South, and I have been in an academic setting for most of my life, so I don't have as thick an accent as a lot of my family members who have not been in as much of an academic setting as I have. Now, some of them make way more money than I do, so I don't want you to think that that is a snobby thing to say. It's just, in an academic setting, you tend to repress any kind of incredibly colorful accent that you have. That's just something that I've noticed. So the dream rehearsal process for me would be a minimum of 3 rehearsals, starting with a 3-hour rehearsal that would really go through the basics of the Southie accent for these actors. That should happen not right after, but the day after the first read-through. The first read-through is a little too early to begin this, so I think after the first read-through would be the best time for this 3-hour workshop. Beyond that, as much as the director would allow, at least 3 dialect rehearsals. Weekly would be ideal, once a week for the dialect coach to come in, but I don't know that the community theater could afford that, both monetarily and from a time standpoint. So maybe after the first 3-hour session, coming back just a couple of weeks later to see how everyone's doing. But definitely the most important rehearsal after that 3-hour workshop would be a full-length rehearsal. So the very first full-length rehearsal of the production, the dialect coach should be there to take notes on everyone's accent through the whole show. That's the very first full-length first full-length rehearsal. And that way any notes can be taken about specific words that those actors may have trouble with. And I can give you an example there. Just using RP, an actor may not know that hurricane is not hurricane in RP. It's hurricane, and you wouldn't just know that from studying the signature sounds. That's something that you would have to be told. So that's just an example of why that dialect coach would want to come for the first full-length rehearsal. So for that 3-hour workshop, I'm going to outline that as quickly as possible. I don't want to bore you. But there would be an introduction between the instructor and the actors. Give them all the handouts, explain all the handouts thoroughly, because it's so frustrating to get a handout and not understand the purpose of it, how it is to be used. Watch some videos on the Boston accent, funny ones that are going to sort of break the ice. And then discuss those, ask questions about those, answer questions about those. Create flashcards with the actors so that they can associate signature sounds with images, and that's going to help your visual learners. And then, of course, you need a break. And there will be a break approximately every hour. So next you would want to practice saying sounds together from Gen M to Southie that change. After that, we would want to play something called accent improv, and this is modeled after Whose Line Is It Anyway, where they each write, or they have a line in their pocket and they don't know what it says. So we would have the actors write 2 very silly key sentences and then exchange those with another actor without looking at them, put them in your pocket, and then stand up and do an improvised scene. And I have the scene improvised notes and everything in here. So that's a really fun thing to do. And then, of course, another break. And then the idea would be, lastly, to have the actors actually score a monologue or a set of lines from their script. So take their script out and write down 50 to 100 words of a monologue or a set of lines. And just with a pink highlighter, a yellow highlighter, a green highlighter, highlight in pink everything in the trap set. Highlight in blue everything that drops a T. Highlight in green everything that drops an R. Things like that will help them to go back and notice those sounds and how those sounds change. So I have my condensed accent sheet, which has this wonderful little picture here. Do not enter. Do not enter. And that's a fun little picture that sort of encompasses that Southie feel. And then Boston Speak at the bottom, which is kind of fun. And it just says things like dinner, supper, bubbler is a water fountain, park the car, everybody knows those. And then parlor, no sir, nah, and tonic and beer and liquor and garbage and totally wicked, and of course the barber. The barber cuts your hair. The barber cuts your hair. If you don't know the barber cuts your hair, then you don't know. And as my sister was explaining to me, she has some buddies up there. It's just a sort of mindset, sort of generally agitated with life mindset, which we definitely get from Margie in Good People. So let's go to the signature sounds for just a few moments. Dropping the R, words like fire end up with a sort of Y sound at the end of those. You have words like fire, and let's see, I've got some others listed. If I get out of this accent, I won't get back into it, so it's just going to have to stay for a while. So those sounds like hire. I'm going to hire the pair of you, because you're just wonderful. Your peers are going to love you. So hire and pia have a sort of Y that jumps in at the end. And then you have words that have a W that sort of pops in at the end. And those are words like poor. You got to open the door. You're going to be poor if you don't get a job. And then dropping the T. Like British Cockney, the T is dropped. But unlike Cockney, you don't have a stop there. So instead of a word like plenty, in Cockney you'd say plenty, but they just drop that T altogether and the word runs together, so it's plenty. We got plenty of money. There's plenty of money for us to do what we want to do. So plenty cake, key, Kate's got key. We got plenty of money. $20. So, and then of course the trap set, which becomes ear, head. I had a camera, but I dropped it. Are you going to make a pan of bread or what? Pan. And my key sentence is, the wicked hot nurse on the 3rd floor acts like she's the cure for cancer. So, the oral posture, the sounds are dropped, R and T, just like in the RP, but the mouth is less rounded. It's much more like a horizontal. It's almost like a smile. And it's really, really, really fun. Very, very fun. I'm absolutely loving the Southie Boston accent. So lastly, any characters that may need work. The leads are obviously going to need work. Your older characters are going to need more work because older characters tend to have thicker accents because they've lived in a region longer. And since they've lived in that region longer, then they're going to have that accent. So, you know, it's interesting. You could study 10 signature sounds. You could study 20 signature sounds of the Southie accent and still not master it. And that is why that dialect coach has to come to that first full read through, first full rehearsal to see what needs to be worked on. Because if you learn something wrong, it's really hard to unlearn it. And of course, diphthongs and triphthongs will be tricky. So those will need a lot of work too. So hopefully this was helpful and I explained everything thoroughly. I really enjoyed this accent so much. I'm absolutely crazy about it. I want to do this show just so that we can utilize this accent because it's so fun. Thank you so much for your time, and everyone have a great night.